What is the most meaningless hill you're willing to die on? Story 1. After you've finished using something, say a pair of scissors or a flashlight, put them back where they belong so the next person can use them. Hands down, this is the worst petty gripe about having a child. When I was single and childless, I could set something down and I knew it would be there when I went back for it. This saved the life of one of my cats years ago. I stuck a needle with embroidery floss through a jacket I was working on in preparation to be picked up again the next day. Next day, no needle and floss. After a quick look into every corner of the house to make sure it hadn't gotten dragged into a corner, I took the 2 cats to the vet to have them x-rayed. Sure enough, Reika had a needle in her tum. They got it out. No harm done, and everything was less than $100. Those were the days. And all because I was the only one in the house and I knew where things were. Now I have an 11-year-old, the cats could swallow a pair of scissors and I'd never know it. I don't know where anything is anymore. You might have to just tether everything down like the pens at the bank. That is the only way you can be certain. This is one of my pet peeves, so I should probably invest in some little chains as well. We have 6 pairs of scissors in the house, and I know where one of them is. Story 2. The people on the elevator exit first. That means before the people waiting for the elevator enter. Always, every time, no exceptions. If I'm riding an elevator and you try to get on before letting me off, I will make it awkward for everyone involved, and I will have literally no shame. Is negative shame possible? I will have negative shame for making you feel awkward trying to block me from getting off the elevator. Apparently, my new petty hill to die on is that negative shame is obviously intended to be humorous. I know what pride is, people. I take the liberty of purposefully standing nose to the door while on the elevator so whoever tries to rush in is immediately uncomfortably close with a stranger, and they feel awkward. All of my family absolutely hates that I do, but I think it's hilarious. Whenever I'm waiting for an elevator with my children and I can tell the people around me are jerks, I make a certain point of using it as a teachable moment. Remember, boys, we let everyone off the elevator first, and do you see that lady with the stroller/man in the wheelchair? They get on first. We can wait. I also remind them to move to the side when others are getting on. We live in a town with almost no elevators and probably ride them every other month or less, but last year we spent a lot of time visiting several large hospitals and hotels, so they didn't think too much of my reminders. I like the idea of making a point of educating people before the door even opens. However, I don't always have a kid with me. Story 3. Please don't try to have a conversation with me when I'm in another room, especially if I'm doing dishes, laundry, making food, showering, etc. I'm trying to listen to you but cannot clearly hear what you're saying. Odds are I'm going to ask you to repeat yourself 3 times, or I'm going to ignore you until I can come to where you are. Either way, you'll likely be mad about it. I now understand why that angered my mother so much when I was younger. If the exhaust fan is on over the stove, or the water is running in the sink, or the dishwasher, washer, or dryer is running, I can't hear you. I'm not being a jerk and ignoring you, it's freaking white noise. Also, if I say, "What?" because I did not hear you because you were in the other room and I'm washing dishes, then you need to increase your volume when you repeat yourself. Another one of my pet peeves. Just because you can hear yourself doesn't mean I can hear you. I have enough trouble singling out one sound over more distracting ones. Story 4. For the love of all holy fucks, if you take the last of something, throw the box or bag away. Sincerely, all parents everywhere. In the trash can, not on the counter above the completely full trash can. Take the trash bag out of the can, add that box or bag to it, tie it up and take it to the big bin outside, then come in and add a new bag to the can. And say something. We're out, which means we need more. I don't need to find that out at an inconvenient time. That's never a problem in my house. My kid will never take the last of anything. It's amazing how rarely she has to rinse the recyclables out. 1 sip of juice, 1/2 an Oreo, cereal crumbs, 1 teaspoon of jelly, because she is considerate and thought someone else might want it. We're hitting all of my annoyances, maybe because a lot of these are common parenting or roommate irritations. Story 5. Having any sound coming from your phone over the speaker in public. What is wrong with you? I don't need to hear your awful music or your conversation. I work in a grocery store, and before this pandemic happened, we used to have a guy, maybe late teens or early 20s, come in around 8 p.m., grab one of the electric scooters, blast his Bluetooth speaker or loudly talk on Snapchat or FaceTime, and proceed to aimlessly drive around the store for 2 to 3 hours. Never saw him buy anything. Also watched him drive into shelves and almost knock a wine display over. I hated him. In addition, I would add people in public bathrooms having phone conversations while on the toilet. Why? It's just rude. My least favorite is loud music or kids playing games on their tablets with all kinds of beeps and dings and encouraging "you did it" comments. Story 6. Scrape your plate off before putting dishes into the dishwasher. I'm home from college right now, living in a 5-person home, and my sister is the only person who understands this. Everyone else basically puts meals in the dishwasher, or they let things like cereal get stuck to the plates and cups, which drives me crazy. It's a dishwasher, not a garbage can. My mom used to take plastic wrap off of stored items and put it into the sink instead of the trash can that was the same distance away from the sink. Every time you tried to do the dishes, you would end up with a handful of wet, slimy plastic wrap. My parents offer to take my used plate to the kitchen. That's great, except they stick napkins, trash, and all straight into the sink. The sentiment is there, but essentially useless if I still have to take the now soggy napkins out of the sink and put them in the trash. And now there is food that could have been scraped off right away, deep in the sink mixing with everything else. Could have just left it on the counter for me to take care of. Or I could do it myself. I now do it myself until I absent-mindedly say yes again. My mom used to put her cigarettes out on plates of food, or put it out in her glass of tea, or whatever. My job was to wash dishes, so I was constantly disgusted by her doing this. This is rude on top of disgusting with a side of disbelief. I would go no contact with these cretins. Story 7. Those new extra safe high visibility headlights should not be installed in any vehicles larger than a wagon. I don't need LED spotlights pointing into my eyes from the front and all 3 mirrors. Seeing is fun for other drivers too. Improperly aimed headlights are terrifically unsafe, regardless of whether they're incandescent or LED, stock or aftermarket. That and idiots who don't shut their brights off when other cars come. Personally, I have a lifted Jeep with aftermarket LED headlights. Prior to installing them, I could barely see the road without brights on, and even with brights, it felt unsafe on country back roads. I took care to aim them properly, mark line on wall, go 25 feet back, adjust compared to original headlights, and actually made sure they shoot ever so slightly lower than my stock headlights. The only time I ever got flashed was when I was the idiot that forgot to shut my brights off, and I deserved it. I think a huge amount of the problem lies in adjusting the aim. When I purchased my Jeep, I noticed I got flashed all the time when I didn't even have my high beams on. Adjusted them to point more down and haven't been flashed at since. Still see just fine too. Don't have LED on my Jeep either. Please adjust your aim. People with bright lights, we would all like to be able to see and not crash. Story 8. The woman that sued McDonald's for the dangerously hot coffee was right, and she should say it. I agree, their coffee was above the maximum temperature considered safe, and her resulting burns were agonizing, debilitating, and insanely expensive. Also, she lost her original judgment when McDonald's appealed, meaning she endured all of that public scrutiny and humiliation and wasn't compensated for her medical or legal bills. The negligence and greed of a gigantic corporation ruined her life. So many of the infamous frivolous lawsuits were not in fact frivolous. The big corporation just ran a smear campaign and straight up lied about how the injuries happened. Everyone should watch the documentary Hot Coffee. It talks about this and how people voted for tort reform to prevent frivolous lawsuits, not realizing what it was and that it applies to all lawsuits, frivolous or not. During the trial, it was revealed that McDonald's knew that heating their coffee to this temperature would be dangerous, but they did it anyway because it would save them money. When you serve coffee that is too hot to drink, it will take much longer for a person to drink their coffee, which means that McDonald's will not have to give out as many free refills or coffees. Story 9. You're not the only person in the grocery store, lady. Move your cart to the side in anticipation of others trying to get by. It's not predicting the future, and you really need to work on your spatial awareness. I've long held the opinion that there are 2 kinds of people in the world: shopping cart people and non-shopping cart people. And just remember, it's always malice, never ignorance. There was a guy in front of me who left his cart in the middle of the aisle. I politely asked if he could move it so I could go through. He grunted and just turned it a bit, so the handle was essentially in the same spot, but the front was 6 inches to the left of where it was. He then grunts, "Go!" And I said, "You didn't leave me any space. I'll still hit your cart." He said, "There's plenty of space, just go." So I did what he wanted and just barreled into the side of his cart. He didn't say anything but just stared at me. I said, "Well, if you don't want to make the effort to move it, it's not my problem." His response, and get this, a 60-year-old man said, "I don't have to. I'm bigger than you. What does that matter?" I got yelled at on Sunday. A woman with an oxygen tank and a scooter was at the store with someone shopping for her. She was parked on one side of the aisle with the cart in front of her, while he was on the other side picking out items she directed him to. Once he walked over to the cart to deposit the items, I followed behind him to get in front of them. I didn't know if they were going to pick out other things in the aisle. She started moving out as I was walking by and almost hit me. She yelled out, "Excuse me," incredulously, so I said, "Oh, no problem," and kept walking. I could still hear her loudly grumbling about me being rude to the guy helping her shop, and he said something like, "No need to get upset." Curb Your Enthusiasm talks about pig parkers. These are pig carters. They take up all the room with their entitled selves. Story 10. Throw away your trash at the movie theater. Throw away your trash, period. The amount of garbage I see on my commuter train, this isn't the subway, but a train that costs $7 plus to ride. Every platform has tons of garbage cans. You can't leave without passing at least one. Nope, just litter. Litter everywhere. And while I'm at it, all you smokers out there that flick your butt out the car window, or toss it on the street outside your office, or the fancy restaurant you're eating at, you are littering. Cigarette butts are the most common item of litter. For some reason, society, for the most part, is okay with this. We shouldn't be. Smokers, stop throwing your butts on the road, pavement, parks, etc. Be better. Treat your city like your home and not a dump. When I worked at a theater in college, I got paid minimum wage, so I didn't care if people snuck in food or anything as long as they weren't obvious. Plausible deniability. That is until people left whole KFC buckets with chicken bones in it that they somehow got in. I also found full diapers, lots of empty airline bottles, entire buckets of popcorn just dumped on the ground, and fast food bags. When you clean the theater, it can be just you or up to 3 other people cleaning, and you have less than 15 minutes to clean probably 3+ theaters, depending on the day. The day I got moved to box office was a joyful day. My brother used to work for the city park district. Part of his job was to clean up after city events and festivals. He lost a lot of faith in humanity through that. People had the attitude of, "Hey, you're getting paid to do this, I'm not, so I'm not doing it." Story 11. People who think it's harmless to put a service dog vest on non-service dogs. It's a crime in 23 US states. It's a crime because people who really need service dogs should be the one to have that privilege, not your stupid little chihuahua that can't shut up. Why is it a crime? Please proceed to the following points. Most of these people let other people just pet their dogs, which leads them to believe that they can do that with all service animals. This is not safe. If you pet a service animal, you are distracting it from doing its job and could lead to the injury or death of its owner. Your animals are not trained service animals. It's obvious to anyone who understands anything about a well-trained animal and one that's just on a leash. An untrained animal in an unfamiliar situation creates stress for it as well as for the people around you. You are not entitled to put out other people or beings for your own comfort. I have seen people bring fake service dogs into court to intimidate domestic violence victims. People who bring their dogs to crowded conventions events while the dog repeatedly bites them and so many more. It's stupid and selfish. Just stop. Actually got into an argument with my mother about this. She says her dog is an emotional support dog. Cool and valid. Having a loving animal in times of mental health hardship can be super therapeutic. Then she Amazoned a little coat for her Australian Shepherd so that she could take her into Walmart, and I said absolutely not. She growls, barks at everything, tugs on her leash, and gets under everyone's feet. It came to shouting. Service dogs are trained for a very specific job, and they deserve their little coats. In my opinion, it should be illegal to sell service dog coats unless it's from the service that provides the animals. I'm the only person who really enforces this at my work. It's so frustrating, and everyone at work is like, "It's just a cute dog, what's the big deal?" Excuse me, we are nurses. This is an urgent care. We do minor surgical procedures. People are sick. Babies come in 48 hours after birth. I could go on and on. It's so infuriating, and even worse, my charge nurses hardly ever back me up because they don't want to risk a lawsuit kicking someone out. All they have have to say is, it's for my anxiety, and my charge nurse just looks at me and says, well, we can't do anything, and walks away. The Americans with Disabilities Act doesn't cover anxiety. Under Title II and III, therapy dogs, emotional support animals, and comfort animals are not protected by Americans with Disabilities Act. I have printed that page out so many times at work, and it gets me nowhere. Seriously, emotional support animals only require paperwork but no training. They are basic pets. Service animals are extensively trained and are very expensive, into the tens of thousands of dollars. They are not the same in any way, shape, or form. One reader suggested asking, what task has this animal been trained to perform, to weed out the difference? Emotional support animals are not given the same access to public places as service animals. Story 12. I bought the house, so the spot in the driveway closest to the front door is mine. Roommates, park your cars on the street. This one kind of used to bug me. My old place had room for 4 to 5 vehicles in the driveway, with only one being blocked in, and for one day a week in the winter from 6 a.m. to 9 p.m., parking on the street was forbidden and would get you a $200 ticket plus a tow so the city could clear the snow. But no one except the landlord was allowed to park in the driveway even though he only had one car, because one time one guy blocked him in, so the rest of us had to wake up at 5 a.m. once a week, drive to a paid parking lot for the day, and pay for a cab ride home. We all worked weird shift work, so it wasn't uncommon for us to be home on Tuesdays. Even though we could have all fit in the driveway, like I'm paying $1,000 a month for a room in the house, I should at least be allowed to park in the driveway once a week so I don't have to pay $50 to park somewhere else and cab it back to my car at the end of the day, when I should be sleeping because I have work at 3 a.m. the next day. I came home from work one day to find a car that is not one of mine in one of my driveways. I pulled in behind it. Just then a middle-aged lady, a bit of a Karen look who I did not know and have never seen before, got out. Our exchange, me, hi there, this is my driveway. Is there something I can help you with? Karen-looking lady, I'm looking for the last name. The last name is not mine and not that of either of the previous 3 owners of the home. We are the 4th. Me. They don't live here, and I don't know them. Karen-looking lady, okay, then starts walking away, leaving her car. Me, you need to move your car, ma'am. Karen-looking lady, I'll be right back. Me, yeah, so I paid for this little patch of the planet and did so I could live here, not to run a parking service. You need to move your car off my property and you need to do so right now. She genuinely seemed stunned that she couldn't just do as she pleased. There's 2 parts to this, the convenience factor and the principle of the thing. The person having to get up ridiculously early, given the shift they work, and that they have to pay to park somewhere else once a week, is definitely inconvenienced. The lady who parked in a stranger's driveway and walked away is kind of being rude. It's the principle. Somebody parked in front of our house yesterday, and we wondered aloud about who this person might be, because nobody ever parks there. It's public parking, and we still felt weird about it. The principle of it wasn't wrong, but we still felt a bit territorial. Story 13. That box of useless cables in my closet, you know, the one that has a bunch of old USB cables, RCA cables, and even S-video cables, and a shitload of AC adapters I can't find the ends for? Yeah, that box is mine, and I will never throw it away. Even if it only comes in handy once a year, it's great feeling like an absolute hero when your friend or family member needs one of those useless cables for something. This is a fact. Never throw away a working cable. You might need it. You can't just buy a box of whatever cables you might need for the year. There's just too many kinds, so many of which are so rarely used. The only way to get a box with all the cables you need is to build up your collection over time. That random adapter you thought was completely useless, if you throw it away, I guarantee you in the next 2 months you will regret it. My dad has the most massive stash of cables, and I will be forever grateful for the many times he had exactly what I needed. A couple of years ago, I took a box of Velcro cable ties and a box of half-gallon Ziploc freezer bags and spent an afternoon watching trash TV and sorting my cable stash. Now everything is contained and labeled to the best of my ability. And those couple of times I've pulled it out to see if I've got what someone needs, I felt like the most on top of things person alive. Just please don't look in my sock drawer. I did something similar recently, although they're not labeled because I don't know what to call them. This is also the reason I keep them, because I don't know how to look up or ask for what I might need. I could only say I need a cord with a rounded end that's sort of flat on one side, while trying to move my hands into the shape I'm trying to describe. It's easier to keep cords so I can plug them in and see if they work, than go through that embarrassment. Story 14. When not in use, the microwave is a clock. Stop leaving your unused time on there. You just have to hit the cancel button once, man. It's because of those alarm beeps. I cannot take those beeps pounding in my head in the morning. Why do microwave programmers insist on making it the most annoying appliance on earth? When not in use, my microwave is blank because I don't want two clocks 18 inches away from the other. Range and over the range microwave. So if you leave time on it, it angers me even more since that should be a blank panel. There are two kinds of people who turn the microwave off before it beeps and don't clear it, and those who let it go full cycle because they need completion. And these people live in close proximity, bothering each other until the end of time. Story 15. MSG is not dangerous, and it's sad that so many people miss out on its deliciousness because of misinformation. My wife says she is allergic to MSG because she gets headaches when we eat Chinese food. Nothing to do with the fact we only eat Chinese food when we're drinking. She doesn't know that I have a pot of it disguised as salt that goes in pretty much all savory food I cook from scratch. MSG may not be dangerous, but absent-mindedly eating an entire can of Pringles or box of Cheez-Its while watching Netflix because MSG is so addictive probably isn't good either. Today, I learned why I eat so many Cheez-Its at a time. I thought it was because of the crunch. This information will not change my habits though. Story 16. I work in a national grocery chain known for its organic foods. My job just started implementing break logs for our 10-minute breaks. We don't have to punch out for them and get 2 per day. Someone was caught taking longer breaks, and instead of talking to said person like an adult, we all have to keep a log of our breaks. I'm a grown man and won't sign the logs because I don't believe in collective punishment. We have a similar issue with the dress code at our work. Since supervisors don't feel comfortable telling individual people they've dressed inappropriately, they just make the rules stricter for everyone. Welcome to corporate America, where instead of punishing the one person that broke a rule, they waste everyone's time. Worked for a cell phone company and had 2 great examples of this inept decision-making. First, one store in Ohio was broken into and had display devices stolen in broad daylight while the store was closed on a Sunday. The company's response was to require all 200+ stores to leave their lights on 24/7, which would have done absolutely nothing in regards to the break-in that actually took place. Second, one employee in one store would open prepaid phones and activate them for friends, essentially stealing, as even if returned, those phones could not be sold to customers as they had been activated onto an account. Rather than firing that single employee who committed a fireable and likely prosecutable offense, they changed how the entire company conducted inventory, changing from one person coming in 1 hour early one day a week to 2 people coming in an hour early every day. Unsurprisingly, the employee ended up stealing again, and the inventory change accomplished nothing but inconveniencing employees and causing higher costs for the company. God forbid a major company act like they have some sense. Corporations may try to go by different rules to try to avoid being sued, but it really is nonsensical. The employees having to change for one person only fosters resentment towards the one person and the company. Remember what it was like in school when the teacher used collective punishment on the whole class? Story 17. Story 17. I'm an astronomer. I know nothing about your dumb astrology sign, so stop telling or asking me about it. First day of astronomy, in my freshman year, professor starts in immediately about how astronomy is not astrology. 2 girls got up and left. Anytime I get asked this, I take the time to explain to them that we and the stars that somehow affected our personality traits upon birth are millions, even potentially billions of miles from where they were when you were born, and where they were a year before you were born. This and many other reasons prove astrology is complete bull. The response is always, "You're such a Capricorn." No, it's fun imagery, and it's easy to blame Mercury being in retrograde for your problems. But on the other hand, who wants to be referred to as a Cancer? Story 18. Flying cars are dumb. The idea is nice until you realize that it's too much responsibility and it costs too much for your average idiot to operate legally and safely. I'll raise you my stupid hill to die on. We've had flying cars for decades. They're called helicopters. They are predictably more expensive than land cars and require more training. It's not science's fault that most people don't want to put the hard work in to learn how to drive a flying car. I've been flying them for 25 years and still have moments where I think, wait, how does this thing work while flying? They're incredibly fun and rewarding, but easy? No. Cerebral? Yes. They tend to self-select for that quality, and sadly, that's not something that your average person is going to possess. I never thought of it this way, and I now finally have a comeback when people bring up flying cars in conversations. You have flying cars, dude, you're just not good enough to fly one. Story 19. Just because I'm a girl doesn't mean I can't play as a male character in an MMO, and I swear if I have this argument one more time with a dude that's playing as a female character, I will scream. Preach. I play female characters all the time. Sometimes I want to be a bad-to-the-bone lizard lady. Other times, I want to be a tough, brown-haired commoner male. Sometimes I even want to be an androgynous skeleton. And yeah, sometimes my profile pic is an anime girl, or sometimes it's a suit of armor, or fire, or whatever I feel like. Don't try to come at me. When I was like 14, I was in a World of Warcraft guild, and there was someone my level, so we did a bunch of quests and dungeons together. I always assumed it was a dude about my age. His character was a blood elf male, turned out to be a 65-year-old grandma. It's freeing to not feel boxed in by your identity. If it's enjoyable and you're not hurting anybody, you should be able to express yourself. This should not be a controversial topic. Story 20. Do not salt the food I've made you until you've tried it. 6 years ago, I made 6 roast chickens on a community dinner. They were perfectly seasoned. I asked my friend to partition the chicken while I did something else. She poured salt all over my chicken without tasting it. It was way too salty. I was ashamed it was served and fear people judged me for my overly salty chicken. We remain friends, but a small part of me will never stop hating her till the day I die. There is an anecdote about Henry Ford that he would not hire executives who salt their food before they try it. Seems like it's just an anecdote and not factual, but it does make sense. How do you know if your food is seasoned to your taste before you try it? I reject this notion for peppering, though, in certain circumstances. I can see how well you have peppered my eggs, and will pepper them before I eat them. This is a reasonable hill to defend. Chefs are very proud of their creations. The one person I would make an exception for is my daughter, who adds salt to Campbell's soup, whose sodium content is known to be extraordinary. Story 21. Just because you are blood related to someone does not mean you need to care about them, love them, or even like them. As a caveat to this, when people use the expression blood is thicker than water to justify that, it really grinds my gears because the actual expression is blood of the covenant is thicker than the water of the womb, meaning it's the bonds you choose to make with people that have more value than just being related to somebody. Thank you. My mom's side of the family has had and still has some real pieces of human garbage on it, but they act like they're the Corleone family when it comes to sticking by one another through right and wrong, but I doubt even the Corleones would take it as far as they have. This is so very important. It turns out that even the phrase used against people trying to draw their own boundaries means the opposite. It's okay to kick people out of your circle, even if they're related. Story 22. Monopoly is an inherently unbalanced and badly designed game, on purpose. Whoever starts winning will simply keep winning, and the rest of the players get a slow slog to bankruptcy, and the winner is usually the most ruthless person at the table. This is why it breaks friendships. It was meant to show the unfairness of unregulated capitalism, and somehow it became an American classic, but compared to modern games, it's terrible. If you want to see Monopoly destroy friendships faster than anything, start forming factions and syndicates where you agree with someone else not to charge each other rent. Played a 4-player game of Monopoly not too long ago. This dude was getting angry because no one would trade with him. He didn't have anything of value and it was way too early. Anyway, I brokered a 3-way property cash deal that gave everyone involved a Monopoly and cash if they ended up with a lower value Monopoly. That dude wasn't involved in this and got annihilated. This is why I don't play Monopoly. I'm not ruthless enough to even like it. Story 23. Old people should be retested for their driver's license every couple of years. Why not everyone for that matter? Young people, or people who just passed their test, maybe drive slowly and more cautiously, but the older people who can't see well or just no longer have the attention span to look right on the roundabout just once before pulling out, they're everywhere and they're the worst. Old/inattentive people are far more dangerous and cause far more accidents than the 17-year-old doing a one-wheel peel on an empty road at night. Everybody, no matter the age, should have to do this every 3 to 7 years. It's insane what happens out there. I watched someone make a U-turn on a busy one-way street once. I absolutely agree with this sentiment. Every time you renew, you should have to prove that you still know how to drive and that you know the rules. Every time a traffic light goes to flashing red from a power outage, it becomes road warrior on the streets. No one knows what to do at a 4-way stop sign. Turn signals are for losers. Yellow lights mean floor it. Unfortunately, Unfortunately, I feel like requiring people to pass the test each time would only end up with more unlicensed drivers driving. I agree that all should be retested, not just older people. So many people crossing lanes on a solid line, ignoring merge lane signs, and just scooting over a little, not knowing what to do at a train crossing. It's too much. I saw a police officer weave through the gates at a train crossing once, but that's a whole other topic. Thank you so much for watching all the way to the end. If you have a similar story that you would like to share, please leave it in the comments down below. If you enjoyed this video, please leave us a like, and if you have not done so yet, please also subscribe. For more videos like this one right now, please feel free to stop by our channel, or once the video is over, you should have 2 options available to you on the video screen. Thanks again, and hopefully we'll see you in the next video.